Do you know that she's 40 years old, Jumbo?
Who's 40?
Blaze.
Yes, you told me that 5 minutes ago.
Blaze, the second 6-star primal caster, the non-limited unit of the Chinese New Year banner. Did you know that she's actually 40 years? I probably don't need to tell you that primal casters don't really have the best of reputations with most people, mostly because they need very specific ops for parts of their kits to work. But first, ask yourself this: how would you go about rerolling an account on a gacha game? Just keep spamming new accounts until you get what you want? That way might take hours of you simply repeating the same boring-ass tutorial missions that will slowly erode your sanity until you start having random fits of rage over things that don't even make sense? Not that I would know that, of course. Doberman is already dead, shut the fuck up. All that so you can finally get to the pulling part and have this result? Cute, but also inefficient. What you could do instead is be smart and use today's sponsor, LD Player. All you need to do is first lower your settings so it doesn't look like you're playing Anfield before releases. Serious, how is this gonna run on a phone? Then, after you're done being horrified at the low res, all in the name of efficiency, and your game is installed, do not open it. Instead, just close the emulator and open LD Multiplayer, where you can clone that instance to open as many as your PC allows. Then, after it's all set up, simply press this button and you'll be able to sync every instance. All that's left to do then is realize you forgot to mute the other instances, which leads to you being greeted by what hell probably sounds like. But with this small problem solved, you're basically good to go and your work will become 100 times easier, which will probably lead to you not having to buy a new monitor and, most important of all, the character you were looking for.
That sounds like a lot of work. I'd rather just download the PC client.
Yeah, that's what a guy I know thought too. He started playing Girls Online 2 because of 416's big-ass personality, just to find out that less than 1% chance on modern gachas suck. And he could have simply used an emulator like LD Player to speed up the process, so please respect your time, use my referral link in the description and get LD Player. I'm very grateful for them sponsoring this video, so let's get back to it. Where did I stop? Blaze, 40 years old, sick head, 416 says, there you go, people don't like Blaze's archetype. So let's analyze her kit and see how she actually performs overall. Starting like always with S1.
天道を乾かさんコロなんだっけまあいいや支障なし
Serenade is a very interesting skill. It almost feels like they made it to mirror how Nymph S1 works, since both of them have a very basic idea for their S1s, but they each do something different. Nymph amplifies the damage enemies take from necrosis. She can also apply a little bit of it herself, but her application is S, because it depends on how much damage it deals per attack. Blaze, on the other hand, just wants to apply burn. She envelops the highest HP operator in her range of this aura that damages mobs around it on a 1.7 tile radius and burns them. It does have the same issue where her burn is tied to how much damage she deals, which makes so this skill is ass against high-res enemies. But this is actually not that big of a downside as it is with Nymph, because this skill has no downtime. Even at skill level 7, the aura lasts for 20 seconds and the skill only costs 19 SP, so there is never a moment where it won't be active. The ideal scenario for it then is to help your team at lane holding, especially against low-res mobs, something that Nymph S1 is bad at, not just because of the downtime, but also because her necrosis buildup is extremely slow, to the point where it might as well not even be there in some cases. All this is to say that both skills do a great job at differentiating themselves. Now, if only the rest of Blaze's kit follows follows this logic, she's going to be amazing. And speaking of amazing, we also have to talk about her talent one. This is a strong buff to burn damage, and it even heals Blaze on top of it. Just by existing on the map, Blaze makes so every burn proc also deals 350% of her attack as elemental damage. And that applies to any burn proc, even if it comes from other operators like Bobbin in this clip. Now, maybe you look at this HP bar side by side, thinking it barely changed anything. And you'd be correct, but context is king here. Steam Knight is a boss and he's alone. But I already showed you burn works really well against hordes of enemies, because it is a one-time damage tick that can one-shot most trash mobs. This does bring a redundancy though. Normal burn already one-shots most trash mobs very easily, so Blaze's boost doesn't really do anything in these scenarios. Logically then, if the extra damage is too weak against bosses but redundant against trash mobs, then all you need to do is meet them in the middle and use it on elite enemies.
聞くつもりはありませんので、どうか迂回してください。
It's really good against enemies that burn can't normally one-shot, but also don't have that much HP. In fact, as you can see right now, Blaze S1 works with operators like Bobbin really well, because their skills complement each other. Since Bobbin S2 can apply burn independently of his damage, he can deal with the higher res elites and have his proc amplified by Blaze, who because of the infinite uptime of S1 can cover for his downtime, and you either don't have his S2 up or would rather not use it against trash. Overall, this is a very neat skill, and I really like how flavorful it is. It does have a few downsides, like being reliant on her damage, but if you look at what it's supposed to do, then this is easily circumventable. By pairing Blaze with other burn ops, they can both cover each other. This obviously won't be as strong as a burst skill, for instance, but this is an S1, the most basic skill in any operator's kit, and this one can reliably proc burn damage, has infinite uptime, on top of also synergizing well with her niche because of that talent. You can even leave it at skill level 7, since like I said earlier, that's all you need for the infinite uptime. So if you want a consistent lane holder and burn support, you can't go wrong here.
本当にどうしようもない状況なら私が粘るしかないわね
Do you have a thing for older women, Storm?
What?
Do you have a thing for older women?
I will not answer to those accusations.
Blaze S2.
アーツのオートメーション参加剣豪を乾かさんフォローなんだっけまあいいや支障なし
It's complicated. Blood Boiling Blaze is again another very unique skill. It's actually the most lore accurate skill she has. When you activate S2, Blaze's range will become this big. It's a massive upgrade, and it even lets her attack behind her back. S2 then increases Blaze's target count by 2 and makes so every attack performed drop these puddles on the target, which in case you don't know are actually her own blood. That's why you can see her HP decreasing every time she attacks. You don't need to worry that much about her dying though because of Talent 1, since if you remember it doesn't just increase the burn burst, but it also heals her every time an enemy gets burn proc in the field, which is precisely the main thing S2 is trying to do. The puddles inflict both arts and burn damage on enemies walking on them, so Blaze will be constantly healed as long as they keep burning. And she only loses HP when performing an attack, so no need to worry about her running out of things to burn and dying because of it. Like Holderer, for instance, who constantly consumes his HP on S3, making so he needs to have targets to counter the HP loss of his skill. So there really aren't any HP issues here as long as she procs burn. Which brings us to the next topic, and that's the fact that S2 is not very good at proccing burn. You see, just like S1, S2's burn is also tied to how much art damage she does, so against high-res enemies, she's really inefficient at proccing it. Oh, I see, it's just like S1, and I can simply use it on waves of enemies then. Well, you can, but then we have another problem in our hands, and that's the fact that Blaze is not good at proccing it on trash mobs either.
まあいいや支障なし
This clip she did manage to hold off the wave pretty well, but notice how almost none of them died because of a burn proc? That's because only the puddles can apply burn, while Blaze herself only deals arts damage. So it's most likely that she'll kill trash mobs before the puddles and lose the heal. This isn't the end of the world, since you can just use a medic to help her, but the fact that her kit works against itself is kinda weird. Thankfully she has another failsafe in case her HP reaches 0, which is her talent too.
私の血が沸きた昨日で地平線まで燃え進む
What it does is make her immortal. It's as simple as that when you summarize it. If Blaze's HP ever reaches 0, she won't die. Instead, she'll gain 6,000 points of barrier and enter this idle state. While in this state, Blaze recovers 3% of her max HP per second. And when it reaches 100%, she will revive and stun all mobs around her. This gives some insane survivability since there is no cap on this talent, so it's totally possible for Blaze to revive 4 to 5 times in a map sometimes. She can still die while in this stage, which then finally retreats her, but trust me, the barrier will protect her really well most of the time. It synergizes really well with Blaze's kit. You'd normally think the talent is already really strong on its own, and it is, but there's still more to it. You see, it fairly clearly says that she can't be healed while incapacitated, so medics won't be able to speed up the recovery process. But there's two things that can help here. The first is non-targetable heals like the ones you see in Torrents as S1 and S2, as well as in Bard operators, etc. And the second is her talent 1, surprisingly. The reason for that is, contrary to the wording of the talent, Blaze can be healed while incapacitated, just can't be targeted by your healers. That's why Thorns and some other ops still work on her, because their healing isn't targeted. You can even abuse this quirk like it was done on CCB3, where they made Call Heal Blaze right before she became untargetable. That way the heal would reach her after being incapacitated, so she would leave the state a lot sooner and stun everyone around her, which resulted in a perma-stall. But you don't even need to go that far, you can just abuse her talent once to bring Blaze back, like I said. And as you can see right now, that synergizes perfectly with S1, because it has permanent uptime, so even if she can't refresh it while in this state, it still lasts long enough to heal her back to full if enough enemies are there. And on top of that, Blaze can still recover SP while incapacitated, so even if her HP reaches 0, that still won't mess with the skill cycle at all. The same can't really be said about S2 though, which is my next topic. Something I didn't mention is that the puddles vanish once the skill is over. I mean, obviously that's how it works, but because of how talent 2 works, it deactivates whatever skill she's using. And why? No, I mean seriously, why? This is such a missed opportunity. Imagine if you could just deploy Blaze on a risky position, activate S2 to set up the puddles, and after she's incapacitated, they would still linger on the field, burning every enemy stepping on them while Blaze still remains safe. It could even heal her back to full before S2 ended with enough enemies. They just needed to make so it lets her skills end naturally. That wouldn't affect S1 because, like I said, it doesn't mess with its cycle, and the same goes for S3 because it's an ammo skill, so you can already deactivate it right before her HP reaches 0. Overall, S2 has a lot of strengths. The puddles are genuinely strong. They can slow enemies by 50%, apply burn, deal arts damage. Blaze can even drop them outside her attack range, and on top of undeployable tiles like red and blue boxes. But all these restrictions, like needing to manually set them up, locking all the burn damage only to them so she might lose some heals, and telling to deactivating it make this skill a lot more awkward to use. On their own, they aren't big issues, but having all of them at the same time make a skill that, yes, has a higher ceiling than S1, but doesn't synergize as well with her kit. So I wouldn't recommend you raise it unless you know what you're doing and want her to perform better solo.
amazing how they mirror Nymph so well with Blaze.
What are you talking about?
See, Nymph is Necrosis, Blaze is Burn. Like Nymph S1 is just a single target, more focused skill to amplify Necrosis. Blaze just wants to apply Burn on a AoE area. Blaze is a hag, Nymph is a...
Blaze has 3.
法に包まれ炎に追いつかれたくなかったらもっと早く走らなきゃ
Incinerator of all evil turns Blaze into a Gatling gun of burn. After you activate it, her range will get a massive increase, and Blaze herself will get 25 ammo, as well as plus 115% attack, and will reduce her attack interval by 1.3 seconds. Her attacks will also deal AoE damage while S3 is active, but most important of all are their last 2 effects. If Blaze hits an enemy under the effects of burn, she will additionally deal 80% of her attack as elemental damage. And if an enemy gets burned while S3 is on, she will refill 2 bullets to it. The additional elemental damage in specific is what makes S3 strong, because if you don't know, there is an enemy stat that specifically reduces elemental damage dealt to them, but currently there are no enemies in the game with that stat above 0. That means that elemental damage is effectively true damage, making so Blaze can ignore res and most forms of damage reduction. There's just a small issue here though. She doesn't apply burn. Yeah, if you read the skill, you'll see that it's just like Nymph S3, so you need another operator to proc burn for Blaze to make use of it. And the difference between S3 with and without burn is fucking massive, especially against higher res enemies. Not just because you're losing her extra elemental damage, but also because she won't be able to refill ammo without burn being procced. Yeah.
Isn't that just the gimmick of the archetype though? You need to proc burn, but in return you get a lot of damage?
You know what? You're 100% right. I don't see the issue with gimmicky ops that require some weird synergy, so let's see what are Blaze's options. Oh, my bad, wrong image. Let me just... there you go, we have 3 main candidates. Technically you can use Vivi too, but her burn is a lot more single target focused and to help herself. So these 3 are better suited to support Blaze. And I'm already gonna tell you that Ifrit's not a good Blaze support.
押せもっと声を上げろ
The reason is, you guessed it, Ifrit's burn is also reliant on her damage, and on top of that her skills are already very strong on their own, which creates this weird predicament where if an enemy is weak enough that Ifrit can easily proc burn, then most likely she can already kill them without needing extra help, but if they are too strong then she can't even proc burn in the first place. So she's only really viable as a Blaze support on enemies with either very low res and high HP, or enemies who are on the middle ground of res and damage reduction. So you kinda lose one of the best aspects of elemental damage, which is the fact that you can usually ignore all defense, res and damage reduction. Not because Blaze will start being affected by those of course, but rather because her burn applier will need to deal with it instead. Not to mention that her range is far from ideal to support Blaze's S3. And this isn't even a one tile is enough case. It has to do with Blaze's range. Because it's so big, Ifrit just can't keep up with it in a lot of cases, leading to all these awkward scenarios where she only burns a portion of the enemies that Blaze can actually reach. Which brings us to Bobbin. His burn doesn't rely on art's damage, so he is already ahead of Ifrit, and like I showed on the S1 section, Bobbin is actually great for big waves of elite enemies, which is exactly the main thing Blaze S3 is good against. He still has that same range issue as Ifrit, but at least you're proccing burn more reliably this time. There is one thing I need to warn you about though, and I'll let this clip show what it is.
緊張しているんで状況特定はご遠慮願います。
怪人は戦力に触れても身体に動かず怪我
Yes, you're not seeing it wrong. He wasn't able to proc burn here. Why, you ask? Well, that's because mine is missing 6 extra attack from Trust, so the bar just barely isn't filled. And this is the warning, if you want him to proc burn on bosses in one skill, then he needs full investment. I'm talking about S2 and 3, max trust and mod level 3 here. Or you could have his spots 3 and 4 to alleviate some of that pressure. I'm not saying that needing investment is a demerit or anything, but a lot of people don't invest in operators to that extent. So just be warned that if you're one of them, then you have to do that for Bobbin. And finally we have you. I'll just let the clip speak for itself again. He's undisputedly the best Blaze support. His S3 not only synergizes extremely well with Blaze's S3, but it also covers for every single weakness it has. Remember that range thing? Well, forget it then, because it's gone with you. He lets Blaze utilize her entire splash area. Remember that ammo refill thing that neither Ifrit nor Bobbin can really take advantage of? Because usually you always activate Blaze after they proc the burn? Well, you is the only one that can really take advantage of that because it makes her able to proc burn. Simply put, Blaze S3 was very clearly designed to work with you. Not Ifrit, not Bobbin, you. If you have him, then Blaze gets access to her best skill with the highest ceiling. She becomes a Gatling gun of burn that can refill itself the more mobs she hits, while the others feel extremely underwhelming in comparison. Neither Ifrit nor Bobbin can make full use of her S3, so their performance will always be considerably inferior to use. And if you wanted to use S3 without supports, then I'm so sorry for you. It has a lot of DPS and the cycle is really good, so it's not unusable, but as you can see, it's not that great either, especially when you compare it to how good it can be when you pair her with you. And this is Blaze the Igniting Spark. Her kit is entirely centered around burn, with some portions of it being very well designed around it, while others are just busted, even outside of the burn niche. But like I showed you, currently S3 pretty much only works with you. S1 and S2 are still fine even without him, but S3, her best skill, is so reliant on you that I would even say he's a must-pull if you want to use Blaze. Which is honestly terrible game design, because you is a limited operator that will not come back for 1 year after the banner, while Blaze goes straight to the standard pull, so it's possible someone gets her even after the event is over and won't even have the chance of trying to get you. At least Nymph had the decency of having a broken SS2, so people kinda ignore how reliant on Virtuosa her S3 is, but Blaze S2 is nowhere near strong, and it has a lot of problems on top of that, making so if you want her full power you need to pull for her light con too. So unless you go for you or you really want to reignite this Dying Star, I don't recommend going for her. It's all just my opinion though, so comment what you think of Blaze. Leave a like and subscribe too while you're at it, and you probably noticed how I shield the fuck out of you here. I honestly had to hold back to not talk about him on the S1 and S2 sections to show they still work fine even without him. If you want to know why he's so busted though, you can go watch this video. That's it then. Bye.
私は君の味方だよ、ドクター。手に負える連中が相手でも、そうじゃなくてもね。どんな大物だって、自分のやらかしの責任は取らせてやらないと。